Hey guys, welcome to the Method Inversions Handstand class. For this class, you'll need to set up your mat next to a wall. If you have a couple of blocks, that's great. If you don't, that's also perfectly fine. When you're ready, meet me on the mat. Hey guys, welcome to class. Handstands are something that can be very intimidating, even just the image of it or the thought of it for many people. It took me personally a long time to feel very stable in a handstand. For a very long time, I was kind of stuck in the thought that maybe my body was just too mobile, too gooey to hold something very still like a handstand. So a lot of the shifts that happen are not just physical, they are mental shifts, the ability to allow ourselves to step outside of a box that maybe we feel comfortable in or identified with. And so I challenge you, if you have a position that you're feeling very strongly about, I encourage you to shift your perspective. And that shift in perception is certainly not just physical, it's a perception that shifts first in our minds. Allow yourself the opportunity to play as well, especially when we're turning upside down on our hands. We're a little bit further away from the floor than we've been so far, and we're using our hands as feet. We're using our hands in a way that we normally don't. Allow it to have a sense of play and a sense of curiosity. I think that really will will allow you to feel a little bit lighter, both mentally and physically. We're going to grab a block. If you don't have a block, just grab anything else, or you can also do the same thing without a block. So I'm going to hold a block this way, and we're going to talk a little bit again about shoulder protraction and elevation. When we stand on our hands, we need to be able to elevate the scapula. So your shoulder is not going to be descending down the back. It's going to be reaching up. This is very logical, but for some reason, shoulder elevation has been kind of demonized in the yoga world. We need to learn how to activate the shoulder blades in order to recruit and find all of the strength around the shoulders. Okay, so just think about it this way: if you were to reach up to something high, say I wanted to put this block up on a high shelf, I'm not going to lower my shoulder down, right? In order to reach up, I'm going to stretch up. We would naturally stretch up, yeah? So in the same way, when I'm trying to press the floor away from me, I'm not going to lower my shoulder blades down the back and bend my elbows. That's no good. I'm going to try and elevate my scapula, rotate the biceps, the armpits in towards each other, and push. You can see, you'll see in a moment, that when you actually do this, already a lot of heat, a lot of fire comes into the arms, into the shoulders. Okay, so grab your block, or just do it without a block, that also works. And see if you can protract your shoulders forward. That means you're extending your arms forward in space. From here, lift the block up over your head and elevate the scapula. Feel the shoulder blades lifting upwards, right next to your ears. Good. Slowly lower. Right in front of you. Keep the shoulders reaching forwards. Inhale. Exhale, lift up. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale and exhale. Good. Stay here and notice what's happening along the middle back, along the rib cage. A lot of us, when we lift the shoulders up, have to compensate and we pop the ribs out. See if you can begin to find what's called a hollow frontside body. So we're pulling the navel back, we're pulling the ribs inwards towards the spine. We're creating a hollow frontside body, filling into the spine so that we have, as much as possible, a straight line. Slowly lower your arms down, and you can place the block by your side. So we want to be able to take this action of shoulder elevation, filling into the back body, upside down. That's going to take some practice, and we obviously want to practice doing this standing up first, because even, having alignment upright is something that many people could use work on, and myself included. So this is one of the best exercises I've found, and I used to do this a lot with one of my first handstanding teachers. I'm going to show you how we do it against the wall. So I'm going to come close to the wall with my heels about 2 or 3 inches from the wall, my feet together, and I'm going to lift my arms up and elevate the scapula. Now, what would normally happen is, for a lot of us, we'll notice natural misalignment. A lot of times for women, it could be just in general, not always, but for most women, we can have a little bit of an arch, an exaggerated arch in the lower back. Sometimes for men, it's a tilt of the hips forward. We want as much as possible in this exercise to glue our entire back body to the wall. And we're going to hold this position for a minute. Okay? If you ever need to take a little break, you can, but do try to hold the posture for a minute. If you want to take it up a notch and challenge yourself a little bit more, you'll grab your block, and just as we did earlier, do the same thing. You're just going to hold your block up in space to add a little bit of weight so that you really can feel the push upwards. Do your best to eliminate any space between yourself and the wall, okay? Okay, guys, so bring your feet together and come a little bit closer to the wall. Yeah. You don't want your heels touching all the way, George, just about an inch or 2. And from here, we're going to lift the arms up. Arms up, everyone. Get yourself ready with the wall. And we'll start. 1 minute. Let's go. See if you can continuously elevate the scapula, shoulder blades up. That's it. Closing the ribs. And when I try to slide my arm between Jenna and the wall, it should be hard. So wherever my arm can slip, that's where you want to really push back. Good. And at the same time, try to relax the face and try to continue breathing so we're not holding our breath. See if you can take the bend out of your elbows. Keep stretching up. Keep stretching up. Find those ribs and close them in towards each other. Pull the navel into the low back. That's it. And see if you can work on that. Yes, that's it. See, you feel that? So that's what we want to do, is try and eliminate any curve from the spine. We're really exaggerating the hollow position of the front side of the body. Good. A few more seconds. Reach those arms up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we'll bring the arms down. Good. Find your breath. This is a great exercise to do. You can do this every single day, even with no warm-up is necessary. It wakes up the body and strengthens the shoulders. It helps us to create muscle memory and condition the body for a shape that's hard enough to do standing up on 2 feet, let alone eventually upside down, right? You guys felt that? So I would encourage doing this every day. You could do for a minute hold, set your timer, and even if you want to take it a step further, add weight, place the block in your hands, hold it there, and you can increase the time or increase your sets. Okay, great. So from here, we're going to come into a plank position. Just like we worked on in our forearm class, we want to be able to really protract and press into a sort of high plank Press yourself up away from the mat. Pull the navel in. A little bit of rounding, exaggerating the straight feeling through the spine. So you're imagining you still have a wall there against your back. Fill, yes, exactly. So you're filling into the low back. Really nice, Jenna, good. Pulling the belly in, pulling the ribs in, pressing away. Good. We're just gonna hold the plank. Holding the plank. See if you can pull up on your knees, contract your thighs, and really press your heels forward on top of your toes. We want to create a deeper flexion in the wrist joints. In a handstand, our shoulders are actually coming more forward than we realize. So we're creating a wrist flexion. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Lower the knees and sit back. When we practice handstands, you'll notice that your wrists are getting quite sore. So this is really normal. It's nothing to worry about. As your wrists strengthen and also mobilize, because it requires quite a deep amount of flexion in the wrist joint, you'll notice that the shoulder head comes right over that first knuckle of the middle finger. So that amount of flexion, over time, you'll start to notice the wrist just getting a little bit sore, the way that your abs would get sore from a lot of ab work. So I always stretch my wrists, and this is something that I do. One of the first things I do before I start any type of practice, regardless of what it is, I always stretch my fingers and wrists, and you'll notice intuitively that when you practice a lot of handstands, naturally you want to take circles of wrist, you want to move your wrists around. So I'll show you some of my favorite ways to stretch the wrists. You're going to come into a tabletop position with the fingers turned back towards the toes. And we may have done some of these already before. We'll repeat them again so that they're ingrained. Inhale, push the floor away. Exhale, bend the elbows back. Inhale, press the floor away. Exhale, bend the elbows back. Deep breath, inhale, push. Exhale, bend the elbows. One more like that, inhale, and exhale, good. Straighten the arms, inhale, lean forward. Exhale, lean back. Now, I have a lot of flexibility in my wrists, so for myself, I like to bend my elbows. So I increase the stretch on my inner wrist. But really, you have to learn to listen to yourself. Listen to the body, listen to what's happening right now, and go to a place that feels good for you. When we stretch, it's very important that our attention goes into the area. So even just thinking about a certain body part will increase blood flow to it. If you feel a sensation, but your attention is elsewhere, it's not as powerful. Go into the area with your entire attention, with your total focus, and soak it with your awareness. One more breath. And coming back to center. Good. So at this point, we want a little counter stretch. Turn the fingers the other way. The backs of the hands are on the mat. And same thing, sit back. Lean back, hips towards the heels. Very nice. Curl the toes under and sit back. Take a few circles of the wrist. When I take circles of the wrist, I always curl my toes under. This way I also get a little stretch on the connective tissue around the soles of the feet. Take a stretch on each finger at a time. I believe we did this either in our warm-up or our forearm class. So this is something you can do honestly all day. Pay attention to your hands, pay attention to your wrists. The hands are an extension of the heart, as you can see. We do a lot of wonderful things with our hands, including handstands. So we want to pay attention and bring a lot of focus, attention, love into our hands and fingers. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about finger placement and the purpose, what the hand does in a handstand. Our hands are going to be used kind of like feet in a handstand. So it's not just about the strength of the shoulder joint and the arm. We obviously don't want to have bent elbows. Our fingers are going to be almost like brakes in a handstand. So in the same way that when you're standing up on your feet, you're not going to be all the way back on your heels. And unless, you're wearing point shoes, you're not going to be standing on your toes all day. Okay, so we're going to use, just as we use the sole of the foot, the toes, the heel, we use the entire foot, you're going to be using your entire hand. I also have to point out, again, that bodies are relatively different. We all have different bodies. We're going to have a different experience. So the things that I'm offering, you always have to take and custom make for yourself. I'm giving you a general understanding, but you have to take that and also see for yourself and be your own best teacher and see what works for you. I'm a particular, I have a very particular way to handstand myself. While most people use the first knuckle of each finger to grip the mat and almost feel as if their fingers are pulling backwards, so that the second knuckle of each finger is usually lifting up for most hand balancers. This is what you're not trying to bend those knuckles, they just naturally do that as you grip the mat, okay? My hand does something a little different, and I've seen a few other people, a few other arm balancers balance this way. My fingers like to press first and second knuckle press down, and first knuckle lifts up almost like the arch of a foot, the way that the arch lifts. So I have a little bit of a different way of doing it myself, but I never tried to do that. That's just naturally how my hand grips, okay? So you don't necessarily have to think about trying to grip a certain way. As we practice, as we come into balancing on our hands, you'll notice that your hands, when you really activate them, will either most commonly, the middle knuckle will begin to lift slightly. Okay, but you're not trying to lift it, is the point I'm trying to make. Something will happen on its own with time to give you really nice control, like brakes, with your fingers. The most important thing to know is that your hands, the placement really does matter, and we also, when it comes to placement, don't want to have our hands too wide apart, and this goes into stacking. So just like what we learned in forearm stand, the hands are closer than you think. Okay, they're not going to be far apart. That's going to cause us a way more wobbly foundation. Hands underneath the shoulders. Also, for in time when we wish to progress into balancing on other people, balancing on other things, or balancing on one arm, it's going to be much easier to transition into those places when our hands are closer together. Okay, so finger-wise, the space between the fingers, let's just cover this as well. We don't need to open the fingers super wide like this, right? It's the same like when you walk. You're not, spreading your toes apart every step. That would be really intense and really isn't necessary. Your hands will naturally, with time, begin to work the way your feet have learned to do. From the time you were a baby, you've learned to use your feet to find balance and to walk. In the same way, your hands over time, it doesn't take just one try or two tries. It takes consistent practice, daily practice, and this is something I can't stress enough. If you want to learn to handstand, even if it's just 5 minutes a day that you get upside down, it has to happen every day. I'm just being really real with you, because it's not going to happen if you only do it once a week or once a month or twice a week. You have to do a little bit every day. So it's like a microdose. Way better to have 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day than an hour once a week. Every day, get upside down. You're giving yourself the practice that you need. Okay, first thing we're going to learn to do is to apply the method, the stack, lean, and extend idea onto our hands. We're going to come into a little mini downward facing dog, and you guys can come in and do it with me. So get yourself into a nice mini downward facing dog. It's even smaller than that, yeah. Exactly. When we start from a smaller downward facing dog, it's a little easier to stack the shoulders over in front of the wrists and the hips eventually on top of the shoulders. So take that a few times with me. Start in your mini down dog, look forward in front of your fingers, and come up on the balls of the feet. See if you can feel the weight transitioning to your hands. Good. Press the heels back down. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, reach back. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, reach back. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, reach back. Inhale, come forward. Good. Exhale, reach back. Inhale, step the right foot forward. Lift the left leg behind you. Almost like you're just taking a little step. Good, and step back. Do that a few more times. Step forward. And step back. Step forward. Try and really stack your shoulders forward. And step back. Last time like that, inhale, step forward. Push the floor away, protracting the shoulders, and step back. Try the other side. Left foot forward, guys. Push the floor away and step back. Left foot forward and step back. Left foot forward. These are foundational movements. They're so important. And step back, step forward, push the floor away, belly in, step back. Last one, step forward. Imagine yourself off the floor. 3, 2, 1, and step back. Good. Sit down for a moment. So don't take these for granted. These are super important movements. They will set up the foundation for not just a random kick in the air, but again, a mindful, aligned, stacked lean. Now, we're not going to be 100% leaning into our handstand today because that would require for you to just press up, and that will take a few years at least to get to that point. But when we hop, I still want you to implement the idea of a lean into it. So I really, really don't want to see a crazy kick up in the air. I want a really underestimated hop, and it's going to look like this. So I'm going to, just as we did before, I'm going to step forward. I'm going to bend my knee and keep that same L shape in my legs. Hop and come down. What I don't want to see is this. Okay? I don't want to see the legs kicking up wildly in the air. So it's not which happens. I mean, it's funny to see, but that's what happens when people, especially when we're speaking to beginning to handstand. This is what happens. It's the fight or flight mode. Sympathetic nervous system is the fear. Everything kicks in, adrenaline. I don't want that. So we want to really come to a place. This is why we have the 3 steps to always remind us, am I stacked? I'm going to lean. And there's going to be a moment of extension, okay? So let's try it together. Just as we did before, mini down dog. You're going to step the right foot forward, bend the right knee, and take a small hop into an L shape. Good. Now let's keep trying. Kick up. Good. Kick up. Kick off the entire right foot. Let's go for 3 more. And last one. And come down. Good. Take a little break. This is where you may feel like circles of the wrists are welcome. So you take circles of the wrist. You stretch the wrist in any way that feels good. You'll notice that it's quite cardiovascular. You feel your heart going, you feel your lungs. And this is why handstands can be so fun. So definitely you're releasing endorphins, And that's why practicing them shouldn't really be, too hard to convince you to do, because once you do get a little bit of airtime there, it's quite addicting. So let's try it again. We'll try the other side, okay? So you'll place your hands right underneath your shoulders. Look forward, don't look back at your toes. Find your gaze somewhere between your hands. You're gonna step the left foot forward, bend the left knee, and take a little hop, keeping that same L shape. And you'll notice that one side may be way more difficult to get off the floor with. Remember, we're trying to get the hips to stack over strong shoulders. Try and keep both legs straight, creating that nice L shape. Pushing the floor away. Yes. Good. So the right leg is pointing straight up. A few more, guys. Keep going. Good. Elbows straighter. Push the floor away. Don't let your elbows bend at all. A few more. Go for 2 more. You got this. And last one. And take a little break. So these are the scaling from stepping in to taking a leaning hop, as I'll call it, taking a little leaning hop into the handstand. These, I really recommend you practice every day. And they're simple, and simplicity is something that I personally cherish. So keep things simple and really focus on being completely present in the practice as it's happening. One of the gifts of turning upside down is that you'll notice after 10 minutes of practice, oh my goodness, I was completely present. There was nothing else I was thinking about because it requires all of your attention. This is one of the gifts of inversion practice. It brings us into the present moment without even trying. So it can be quite a meditative practice. We're going to learn how to balance with the wall. As I've said in the earlier classes, I don't believe in kicking to a place where you're going to overshoot and fall. So you can certainly, even as a complete beginner, which is really what these exercises are made for, even as a complete beginner, you don't have to always use the wall, okay? You can certainly step and take a little L-shaped hop. This is a great way to begin. Will give you the confidence of learning the right foundation without the wall. How do we use the wall for a handstand? What we don't want to do is important to show. A lot of times we see something like this, and the foundation becomes the equivalent of standing like this all day. Right? We wouldn't want to do this. This is not the best posture. So in the same way, when you're upside down, we want to eliminate that banana shape in the spine. So it's the same thing we worked on already with the wall. When we're going to kick into the wall, you're going to come as close to it as you can, not far away. The further you are from the wall, the more likely you are to collapse into that L shape. So come quite close to the wall. Use that same technique. You go from your mini down dog. I'm going to kick up and find the wall. I'm not collapsing into the shoulders, so pay attention to my shoulders. I'm pressing up. I'm going to bend one knee so that there's no way I can collapse into an L shape, into a banana shape rather. I push up. My right toes are pointing up to the ceiling. The left foot is against the wall. And I'm going to do a little switch every once in a while. Switch, switch, switch. Okay? Pushing the wall away, finding maybe some hang time, and coming out. Okay, let's all try it together. Don't set yourself, you're going to be very tempted to set yourself far away from the wall. Try and come closer to the wall than you would normally. And then you'll notice that you need way less momentum when you're close to the wall to kick. Yeah? So we're starting in that mini down dog. Go ahead and take your hop upwards. Good. So once, and it may take you a few hops, right, to get up on the wall. Once you find yourself on the wall, one foot is connected to the wall, and then try and bring your two knees in towards each other, minimizing the arching of the spine, pulling the rib cage in, and elevating through the scapula. Try switching your legs now. What we're working towards is a straighter line through the spine. Good. When you need it to have a little break, go ahead and sit down, take a little break. Good. So one foot is against the wall. The other foot, see if you can point straight up, even bringing the two knees in towards each other. Yes. Good. Good. So that's where the work is, guys. So take a little break, sit down. When we're doing these, you'll notice that it's way different than just kicking back from far away from the wall and hanging with the feet on the wall. That's not going to do anything, okay? That is really not going to help our foundation. It's not going to help us with our understanding. So I'd much rather you challenge yourself, you learn something new. At first, it's going to feel very foreign, especially if you're used to kicking from far away. And that's good. So welcome that shift in perception, both physically and mentally, and keep working on it. It's a lifetime practice. So there isn't, if you're focusing on getting the shape, if you're focusing on being in a handstand, that's going to actually slow you down. Focus on the lean into. Focus on the journey into it. It's really going to be a much better journey that way, when you really cherish the journey as it is. Another way that we're going to come into the wall. Okay, so this is can be a very scary way to come into the wall, but I do quite like it, okay, because it enables us to, I'm going to move these blocks a little bit, because it enables us to have a different relationship with the handstand and with the wall. So I'm going to show it to you guys. I'm going to move this one as well, because to show you how to come out of this, I'm going to do a little bit of a cartwheel out. So Georgia, maybe move this way. Okay, so I'm going to come up onto my hands, and I'm going to step up into the wall. For this, the scaling options for modifications, you could stay here. This also might be a lot. If it's a lot for you, you're going to step up, and you're going to look like this. Your knees will be tucked into your chest, and you're going to do your best to shift the weight forward. That's going to be option one. Otherwise, I'm going to start walking my feet up the wall, and from here, I'm going to start walking in with my hands. The closer you come to the wall, the scarier it's going to feel. And obviously requires a good deal of shoulder strength to walk yourself back. I'm elevating the scapula, pushing away, and looking between my hands, I can point my feet. There are two ways, and this I used to hold with my teacher for a minute at a time. Different ways to come out. I can take a few steps forward and come out the way I came in, or you can sort of cartwheel your way out, okay? Please honor the place where you're at right now. So just as I showed that there are ways to scale and progress in this exercise, you might start just by walking up, knees tucked into the chest, slowly leaning the weight forward. Or with time, you may be able to walk your hands closer to the wall. I don't want you to walk so close that you're going to fall back into a wheel. So that's on you. Always work mindfully. I'm trying to, in this method, teach you to work in a way where you're really minimizing the chance for collapsing out of the pose. But that requires a great deal of awareness from you. Go ahead and give it a try. So you're going to come right next to the wall into a mini dog facing away from the wall. Position your hands strong. Step up onto the wall. And either stay there trying to stack the hips over the shoulders, or if you feel ready, take little steps back towards the wall. Take little steps back towards the wall. Yes, very nice. Good. Try and bring your feet, inner ankles together. This is what's going to happen eventually in our handstand when we go upside down. And the gaze is always going to be between the hands, just because the gaze that's dropped is a little bit more advanced. So for now, we're going to look between our hands. Good. Let's hold for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly release. Okay. Really nice. So we can see how we can slowly progress into our handstand, different ways that we can challenge ourselves in our handstand. Another great thing to begin to work towards is jump into a tuck, which is something very useful, especially if you are a vinyasa practitioner. It could really begin to be a good time to practice. Every time we go from a down dog to forward fold, you can practice this jump. Okay, so a lot of times we can see in a vinyasa class, the teacher will ask you to come to the front to hop or jump or whatever to the front of the mat, and something like this happens, kind of like a, yeah? And so what's happening there is I'm hopping my feet forward, but nothing really changed in the position of my pelvis, right? The idea is to get that pelvis on top of your strong shoulders. And let's even take a moment here and break down down dog, because what's happening, down dog is really, if you do it down dog correctly, guys, every time you go to your vinyasa class and you actually do your down dog, that is the foundation for your handstand. So a lot of times, because unfortunately scapula elevation is just not taught, unfortunately the shoulder down cue is so popular. So even in a down dog, it makes no sense to do this, to press the shoulders back and down, but that's what's being taught. So you have to teach yourself to push away in your down dog. Okay, so it's not here. Your down dog is going to be an elevated scapula pose. Good. So try this at home. You're going to be in your down dog. You're going to push the floor away and elevate the scapula. Exactly. Now rotating the armpits in towards each other. So imagine your armpits have eyeballs, and your eyeballs and the armpits are looking in towards each other. Biceps in towards each other. Good. All right. Very nice. So this should already feel quite different. Every time you're in your down dog, now you're strengthening your shoulders, you're preparing for your handstand. So take a little break. Once we know this, we unlearned. Yes, I get it. So when you do a down dog correctly, really that's you notice the difference. The shoulders are going to be strengthening. And one example that really works for people when I tell them this, because a lot of people are like, what? You mean this is happening in a down dog? And it's just so crazy for people to learn this. So, you know, have you ever seen a swimmer? Like Olympic swimmers, they usually have pretty strong shoulders, right? And that's because they're not swimming like this, right? It's not this that's happening. There's a full rotation of the shoulder. So when they're swimming, I'm not a swimmer, but I know that this happens when you swim. They're using their entire shoulder joint. They're mobilizing their entire shoulder and strengthening the entire musculature around the shoulder joints. So it's very important that we understand that there is absolutely no need to demonize scapula elevation. And when we learn to do our downward facing dog correctly, you'll set yourself up for handstand in the right way. Okay, jumping into a little tuck from our down dog is going to look like this. We're not going to start all the way back in a down dog. We're going to move it halfway in. That's going to make it just a little bit more accessible. You're going to bend your knees and have your entire foot on the floor. The reason is the same way if you have ever danced, for example. You don't do a plie from the balls of your feet and take a big leap upwards. You take a plie into the entire foot off the floor. What this does is gives us a lot of back information, a lot of resistance from the floor. You get a lot more energy from the floor in which to jump with. So when you take your mini down dog, you don't come up on the balls of the feet. You're going to be on both feet, and we're going to try and hop up. Don't overdo it. Don't change the shape of the legs. This is not changing. This shape is not going to change, so none of this. Yeah? You're going to keep that same tucked position of the legs. The only thing that's happening is we're going to do our best to take the pelvis, your hips, onto the strong shoulders. And the idea is to just keep going. Maybe you can do 5 and get a little break. And then we'll do 3 sets of 5. Okay, let's go ahead and give it a try. Get into your mini downward facing dog. Scapula is elevating. Bend your knees and go ahead. 1, keep going. 2, 3, 4, 5. Last one, and take a little break. Get a little break. Find your breath. Exhale fully. Good. Good. So this is going to also completely transform the way we include handstand practice in maybe our daily vinyasa practice. Go ahead. I think that's enough of a break. You can try again. Bending the knees fully like a plie. Look forward and hop. 1, 2, 3. Don't overthink it. 4. Yes. 5. Keep those legs tucked in. Good. Take a little break. So what I'm seeing, I can't see you guys at home, but it's very likely that we're seeing similar things. So for George, he needs to tuck his legs in a little bit more. What happens is he's jumping in, but his legs stay kind of in a loose position. He needs to stay tucked. So the position is similar to this on the floor. Why don't you try it with me? Lay down on your back and tuck the knees to the chest. Tuck the knees into your chest. Try and point your toes. So we're animating the body with awareness. Yeah, maybe move a little away from the wall, George. And I like the way that Jenna is doing it because she's really pressing against the wall. Find the elevation through the scapula, lift the shoulder blades up, and tuck the knees into the chest. This is our handstand. Okay, this is the shape we're going for. Try and point your toes, guys. Good. Gluing the lower back to the mat. So when you're doing this at home, really imagine that there's going to be no space between yourself and the mat. Excellent. So let's try just one more set of those jumps into tuck. Ready, set, go. 1. Good. Plie. 2. Never thought I'd say that in a yoga video. It's very satisfying. And 3. Let's go. 4. And 5. If you can, at home, see if you can get some hang time in there. And slowly lower. Good. So the thing that I'm going to have to keep repeating is that while we can find tiny shifts, especially with clear perception, we can see and notice shifts in ourselves that happen in this practice physically and beyond. But really what's going to make this journey so wonderful for you is when you let go of a deadline. Well, when am I going to get to balance in a handstand? How long did it take for her? How long did it take for him? Don't worry about that. Really, there's no need to get attached to these conceptions in the mind of like how long a handstand should take to master. You're never going to master a handstand. It's always going to be inviting you to go a little bit deeper into yourself. So hopefully we always retain that bit of curiosity and allow ourselves to come into a lifetime of practice with no expectations and no attachments to a result. Okay, that's really going to free you from uncomfortable or unpleasant feelings. Thank you so much for practicing handstands with us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I truly hope that you find even 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day to practice every day. Namaste.